All right, welcome back. So, in our last explainer, we covered the big picture trust framework for AI. It was all about the what and the why. Well, now it's time to get practical. We're going to zoom in from the framework to the actual rulebook, the concrete do's and don'ts you need to know. This is how you make sure your AI is actually building trust, not accidentally tearing it down. Let's get right into it. So here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the thing you'll probably run into first, visuals. From there, we'll talk about chatbots and how to keep them on a tight leash. Then we'll look at some of those sneaky authenticity traps that are really easy to fall into. And I'm going to give you a super simple 5-question stress test you can use on literally anything. Finally, we'll wrap up by talking about why even the smallest details matter a lot. Because really, this is the whole ballgame, isn't it? Especially when you're working in the nonprofit space, trust is your currency. It's everything. So the question becomes, how do we use these incredibly powerful new tools without chipping away at that foundation? Let's break down exactly how to do that. Okay, first up, visuals. This is, without a doubt, the most common area where you'll face these new challenges. With AI image generation and editing, that line between a creative touch-up and, well, a deceptive change, it's gotten incredibly blurry. So let's make it sharp again. Here's a really simple way to think about it. AI is for design, not for documentation. See, adding some fun, obviously fake balloons to a photo, that's a design choice. Nobody thinks those were real balloons floating there. But using AI to add a photorealistic crowd in the background of a photo that wasn't there, well, now you've crossed the line. You've stopped documenting what happened, and you've started fabricating it. And this leads us to the sneakiest and most common way organizations cross that line, usually without even meaning to. It's called emotional amplification. This is when you use AI to subtly tweak an image to make it feel more dramatic or emotional than it actually was. You know, adding a tear to someone's eye, making a smile just a little bit bigger, or changing the lighting to feel more somber. It might seem like a tiny artistic tweak, but ethically, it's a huge misstep. So this needs to be your bright line rule, your non-negotiable. If you remember one thing about using AI with visuals, make it this. If it didn't actually happen, AI can't be used to make it look like it did. The emotional truth of your photos and videos has to be protected at all costs. Okay, let's switch gears. We've talked about what people see, now let's talk about what they interact with. Chatbots. They're amazing tools for efficiency, but man, if you don't keep them on a tight leash, they can become a massive liability. The key here is to really understand the difference between a safe, useful chatbot and a high-risk one. A safe bot has one job. It's task-oriented. It answers simple FAQs. It processes a donation. It updates an address. It's a tool. The high-risk bot? That's the one that starts with that big open-ended question, how can I help you today? That question is an invitation to chaos. It can lead to hallucinations, totally wrong answers, and worst of all, it can drift into trying to persuade someone to donate without any human oversight. And this brings us to the core principle for any interactive AI. It's simple. If a conversation could genuinely influence whether or not someone decides to donate, a human needs to be involved. An AI can handle the transaction, absolutely, but it should never, ever be in charge of the relationship. All right, time for a quick fire round. Beyond the big obvious stuff with images and chatbots, there are a bunch of these subtle little traps that can really damage trust if you're not paying attention. First trap, before and after photos. They're so powerful, right? But they only work if they're 100% real. The moment you use AI to create a more perfect, more dramatic after photo, you're not showing your impact anymore. You're showing a fantasy. And that's a massive breach of trust. Trap number 2 is subtle, but it's so important. Your chatbot's voice should be functional. It should be helpful and neutral. When your bot starts saying things like, "We appreciate you so much," it's trying to simulate a human relationship that just isn't there. It feels weird and inauthentic because, well, it is. And trap 3, using AI to edit stories. Look, using AI to help you fix grammar, improve clarity, or structure a story, that's totally fine. That's just being a good editor. But the second you use it to add emotions that the person didn't actually express, or you start inventing narrative details to make the story better, you've crossed a major line. You've gone from editing to fabricating. So with all these rules and different situations, how do you make sure you're staying on the right side of that line every single time? Well, I've got a really simple tool for you. Think of it as a 5-question stress test you can run on any piece of content that AI has touched before you hit publish. It's super straightforward. Just ask these 5 questions. 1. The reality test. Does this show something that actually literally happened? 2. The attribution test. Can we point to a real source for every single claim being made? 3. The emotional integrity test. Did we tweak this to ramp up the emotion beyond what was real? 4. The substitution test. Did we use AI to create something that we really should have just captured for real? And 5, just for chatbots, the conversation control test. Is there any chance this conversation could wander off into persuasion or fundraising? If the answer to any of those is yes, or even just a maybe, you have to stop. Hit the pause button and go get a second opinion.
Now, as we start to wrap this up, I can kind of guess what some of you might be thinking right about now. Yeah, you might be thinking, come on, a little color correction on a photo, a slightly friendlier tone from a chatbot. Do these tiny little enhancements really matter in the grand scheme of things?
They absolutely do. See, trust isn't built in one big moment. It's built slowly, brick by brick, over hundreds of tiny, honest interactions. And every little distortion, every minor AI enhancement that bends the truth, it's like a tiny crack in that foundation. And enough of those little cracks can eventually bring the whole thing down.
So, if we boil this whole conversation down, it really comes to two final non-negotiable rules. Rule number 1, AI cannot change what happened, period. It cannot be used to alter reality, the scale of an event, or the emotional truth of your work. And rule number 2, your AI tools need a specific job description. They are assistants, they are not your ambassadors. Any kind of open-ended conversation that could drift into relationship building or fundraising is completely off limits. And that's the question I want to leave you with. Every single time you go to use one of these tools, ask yourself this: is what I'm about to do building trust, or is it breaking it? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about cool new tech. It's about making sure that every single interaction, whether it's with a person or a machine, reinforces the trust that you have worked so incredibly hard to build.